So now we're going to solve an example using the p-value method. So in the p-value method, we need to state the hypothesis and identify the claim. So this is the same step for both methods. We also need to find the test value using the formula for z. But then instead of using table F to find the critical values, we're going to find the p-value using table E. Once we find the p-value, we can make the decision following this criteria. If the p-value is less than or equal alpha, we reject the null hypothesis. If the p-value is greater than alpha, we fail to reject the null hypothesis. And once you made the decision, we can summarize the results. So, how do we find the p-value? Well, depending on the type of test. If it's a left tail test, the p-value is the area to the left of the test statistic. So the test statistic is the value of z, the z value. This area to the left of z will be equal to the p-value in a left tail test. For a right tail test, then the p-value will be the area to the right of the test statistic. So the p-value is equal to this area. And in the case of a two-tailed test, the p-value depends on if the test value is to the right of the mean or to the left of the mean. So the mean is 0. So if the test value z is positive, then the p-value will be 2 times this area. That's for when z is positive. And when z is negative, then the p-value will be equal to 2 times this area. Let's solve the same problem from before, but now using the p-value method. In this case, we're going to have the same hypothesis because it's the same problem. This doesn't change. So the first step is the same. Now in the second step, we need to find the test value. And we already know what's the value of z. The value of z was negative 1.75, right? That was the value that we obtained. And now the difference is that we need to find the p-value. So what's the type of test? Right tail, left tail, or two tail? It's a left tail test, so the p-value will be the area to the left of negative 1.75. And that's because the test is a left tail test. If the test is a right tail test, the p-value will be an area to the right of the test value. So graphically, we're going to have negative 1.75 here. So the p-value will be equal to this area. So we can use table E, because with table E, we can find areas to the left or to the right of z-scores. So table E, the z-score is negative 1.75. So what's the area to the left? 0.0401. So the p-value, this area, is equal to the p-value is 0.0401. Now we can make the decision. So in this method, the decision depends on if the p-value is less than or equal to alpha. So alpha is 0.01. So how is the p-value? 0.0401. Is this number greater than or less than alpha? It's greater than. So when the p-value is greater than alpha, what's the decision? Fail to reject. That's because the p-value is greater than alpha. This is the decision criteria for the p-value method. When the p-value is greater than alpha, we fail to reject. And when the p-value is less than or equal to alpha, we reject. So it's the same decision that we obtained before using the critical value method, so it would be the same conclusion. There is not enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis, so we cannot support the claim.